Right now, your Honda might be running on bad data. Not because something is broken, not because a part has failed, because a few sensors and passages that nobody ever thinks to check are feeding your ECU garbage on every single drive. And your engine is doing the best it can with the wrong information. Welcome back to Honda Decoded. I'm Mike. 25 years in this shop, and I can tell you one of the most expensive mistakes I see Honda owners make isn't buying the wrong car. It's authorizing a parts replacement before anyone checked whether the existing part is simply dirty, rough idle, hesitation, bad fuel economy, check engine lights that keep coming back. In a huge number of Honda cases, those symptoms trace back to a clogged passage, contaminated sensor, or carbon buildup, not a failed component. Today, I'm walking you through the 5 sensors that get misdiagnosed the most on Hondas, what each one does, where shops go wrong, and what to check yourself before you spend a single dollar on parts. Stay till the very last one. It's the most expensive misdiagnosis on this list, and it's almost always preventable. Let's get into it. 1. The mass sensor. The mass airflow sensor sits between your air filter and the intake manifold, and its one job is to measure exactly how much air is entering the engine on every breath. Your ECU takes that reading and uses it to calculate how much fuel to inject. If the math is feeding the ECU bad numbers, the engine can run rich, run lean, hesitate, stumble, or idle rough, and it will do all of that while the sensor itself is technically still working. Here's where the misdiagnosis happens. Honda throws a lean code, a rough idle code, or a fuel trim code, and the shop quotes a MAF sensor replacement. But the real issue, a majority of the time, is a dirty MAF element, an air leak upstream, or contamination from dust and oil vapor. The sensor isn't failed, it's just reading through a film of buildup. I've seen a $14 can of MAF cleaner fix a problem a shop was about to charge $300 to solve with a new part. Before anything gets replaced, check the air filter, inspect the intake tube for cracks, and look at the MAF element itself. If it's contaminated, clean it with proper MAF cleaner only. Not brake cleaner, not carb cleaner. The right product in short, controlled bursts. Let it air dry and reinstall. That's the first step, and it eliminates the most common cause before you ever touch a parts catalog. If you've already paid for a sensor replacement that didn't fix the real problem, this channel is exactly what you need. Subscribe so you're ahead of it next time. 2. The throttle body and TPS. This one is the one I see get mistaken for a transmission problem most often, and that misdiagnosis is expensive. On many Hondas, carbon buildup around the throttle plate creates hesitation, jerky acceleration, poor idle quality, and throttle response that feels wrong, surging, hunting off the line. Owners feel the car shifting strangely and assume the transmission is starting to fail. Here's what's actually happening. The throttle position sensor reports throttle angle to the ECU. If the throttle plate is sticking or moving inconsistently because of carbon on the bore walls, the TPS data looks erratic. The ECU sees a throttle angle that doesn't match the driver's input, and it starts compensating incorrectly, affecting fuel delivery, ignition timing, and transmission shift behavior all at once from one dirty component. The fix is disconnect the intake hose, spray a $7 can of throttle body cleaner directly onto the plate and bore with the engine off, wipe it clean with the microfiber cloth, and run the ECU relearn procedure afterward so it adapts to clean metal. In my shop, I've had customers come in convinced they needed a transmission service, and a 40-minute throttle body cleaning sent them home with a car that drove completely differently. 3. The MAP sensor. Honda owners hear about MAP problems constantly, but the MAP sensor is the one that gets overlooked, and it causes some of the most confusing symptoms I see come through the shop. MAP stands for manifold absolute pressure. Instead of measuring airflow directly, it measures pressure inside the intake manifold. The ECU uses that to calculate engine load, air density, and fuel needs. On Hondas, it becomes even more critical because boost pressure is factored into that calculation. A clogged MAP port or a dirty pressure passage can make the ECU think the engine is under completely the wrong load. And the symptoms that follow are hesitation, poor fuel economy, surging, and on turboed models, incorrect boost response. Shops often replace the sensor itself and call it done. But the sensor is fine. the port feeding it information is blocked, or there's a cracked vacuum hose upstream delivering the wrong pressure reading. Before any map sensor gets replaced on a car in my shop, we clean the intake passage, blow out the sensor port, and inspect every vacuum line in the circuit for cracks or loose connections. A 2-minute check with a can of compressed air can save a very expensive guess. If you've already paid for a sensor replacement that didn't fix the real problem, this channel is exactly what you need. Subscribe so you're ahead of it next time. 4. The crankshaft position sensor. This is the one that genuinely scares people, because when it acts up, it looks like a catastrophic engine problem. The crankshaft position sensor tells the ECU exactly where the crankshaft is at every moment, and how fast it's moving. Without accurate data from this sensor, the engine can't time fuel delivery and spark correctly. On Hondas, a failing crank sensor can cause a no-start condition, sudden stalling while driving, or a heat-related shutdown where the car dies when it's warm and won't restart until it cools down. That last symptom is where shops make serious money. The car won't start, the customer is panicked, and suddenly the diagnosis turns into a major component bill. But here's what I check first every single time: the connector. Oil contamination, heat damage, and corrosion at the sensor plug can create the exact same symptoms as a failed sensor. A corroded terminal creates an intermittent signal. The ECU sees gaps in crankshaft data, and it responds the same way it would to a dead sensor, because from its perspective, the data is gone either way. Clean the terminals with electrical contact cleaner, inspect the harness for chafing or heat damage, and recheck the symptom. I've fixed no-start Hondas with a connector cleaning and $1's worth of dielectric grease. That's the difference between a small repair and an unnecessary $150 sensor replacement, or worse, a misdiagnosis that goes deeper.
5. The oxygen sensor trap.
And here's the last one, which also happens to be the most profitable misdiagnosis on this list for shops that aren't paying attention. Honda oxygen sensors sit in the exhaust stream and measure how much oxygen remains after combustion. The ECU uses that data to fine-tune fuel delivery in real time. When the system is running lean, an O2 sensor code or a fuel trim code gets stored, and most shops jump straight to upstream oxygen sensor replacement. But a lean code does not mean the oxygen sensor is bad. It means the system detected a lean condition. And the causes of a lean condition include a dirty MAF sensor, a vacuum leak anywhere in the intake, a fuel delivery issue, a clogged fuel injector, or a MAP sensor reading incorrectly. The O2 sensor is just reporting what it sees. Replacing it when the root cause is something else means the new sensor will generate the same code within weeks, and the owner comes back confused and out of $200 to $400. The smarter sequence before any O2 sensor gets replaced is check intake leaks. Pull fuel trim data live and look at short-term versus long-term corrections. Inspect the math and map and verify fuel pressure. If the rest of the system is healthy and the O2 sensor is genuinely sluggish or reading out of range, then replacement makes sense. But that's the last step, not the first. What to check before authorizing any sensor replacement? In order, air intake and filter condition first, then MAF or MAP contamination, then throttle body carbon buildup, then sensor connectors and wiring, then live fuel trim data before touching any O2 sensor. That sequence catches the actual problem in the majority of cases I see, before a single expensive part gets ordered. Honest disclosure. These are the most common patterns I see in my own shop, not a guarantee that cleaning will fix every sensor-related problem on every Honda. Some sensors do genuinely fail and need replacement, and some symptoms that look like dirty sensors are pointing at something more serious underneath. If cleaning and connector inspection don't move the needle, get a proper diagnostic from a trusted independent shop before going further, not a parts cannon approach from someone who hasn't read live data first. Most Honda owners don't get burned because their car is hard to fix. They get burned because the wrong part gets replaced first. A dirty sensor, a clogged passage, or a carbon-covered throttle body can produce symptoms that look far worse than they actually are. And the shop that goes straight to replacement instead of cleaning first is costing you money that doesn't need to leave your pocket. Drop your Honda model and the symptom you've been chasing in the comments. I read every one, and if it sounds like a dirty sensor problem, I'll tell you which one to check first. If this stopped you from paying for a part you didn't need, subscribe and turn on notifications. Honda Decoded puts this kind of breakdown in front of you every single week. Thanks for watching. Take care of your sensors, and your Honda will take care of you.